from Dog Day Afternoon to Near Dark to his searing portrayal of Frank Black in Chris Carter's hit TV series Millennium, Lance Henriksen has solidified his status as one of our most versatile and beloved character actors. Now, Mr. Henriksen has chronicled his remarkably colorful and passionate journey in a new book titled Not Bad for a Human, which is now available for purchase from our show page. In this conversation, Mr. Henriksen discusses his approach to the craft of acting and what many consider the defining performance of his career as the loyal android Bishop in James Cameron's Alien. A big part of the book that was of particular interest to me was that you said that every time you finish a job, the predominant feeling you have is that you don't know who you are. And that got me thinking about actors and the process that they go through and their own sense of self and how that factors into what they do.
Yeah, it's true. It really happens. I mean, I don't think I'm unique in that. I think maybe people don't verbalize it, or they push past the feeling, and do something to maybe cover it up or to fill the gap, and I think people do that, But yeah, it's something, man. It always happens, but it's always a shock. It mostly happens when you're doing something that you tried to contribute a lot to, and it was a long enough time where you suddenly put yourself aside.
Well, when I speak to actors, and especially actors that have been in the business for many years, as you have, I ask them if their approach or what they get out of acting has changed now from when they started. And a lot of actors say that in their approach they've become more efficient, that they're not so inspired to throw in everything but the kitchen sink, and it kind of makes it easier to live with. Did you reach that stage too?
Well, it depends on the challenge. I mean, I think if the role is a visiting character, in a movie, that isn't very protracted, then that's the case. You would be more economical, and you would try to look for some kind of inspiration. But when you're in a film for a long period of time, the difference is you have to really draw on something. And I was just talking to a director this morning, a guy I really respect, Richard Gibson. He's from Australia, and we had done a short together called Message from Fallujah. But we were talking about this new material that he's working on, and I thought, it suddenly hit me like I always call it channeling, that some thought comes through your mind. And I said, one of the things that occurs to me is that we're all one. I mean, that's the thing that we're all forgetting, that a lot of the channeling that happens, I call it channeling. You go through these phases. One is you're gathering what seems to be obvious in a way, and then becomes channeling, which is almost like we have a collective mind, that if there's an issue that's an unfulfilled issue out there floating in the air, because we're all really connected, that's my opinion anyway, that issue will come through you, channel through you. Because I sometimes say things and I go, where the hell did that come from? I mean, that understanding of something or a line of dialogue that just comes from a source that I hadn't known, that I really hadn't connected with before that moment. Yeah. So it's the whole process. I guess the intensity of it is different for everybody, depending on where they came from. All roads to acting or to the filmmaking or the arts like that we all come from somewhere else, different places.
When you're preparing a role and you're kind of channeling, as you said, the ideas and the themes that you want to explore in these characters, how do you go about doing that? What helps stimulate that for you beyond the script?
But the script sets up a narrative, and sets up without restraint, there's no art. So the script is the art. I mean, that's the restraint. Mm-hmm. But I'll give you an example. I'm working on something right now that came out of nowhere. It was I did a movie with Michael Worth. while we were working on that film, he had an idea. And now we've done it. And that was years ago, and now we've done it. And the movie is Bring Me the Head of Lance Henriksen. That's what the movie is. That's the name of it. That's what it's about. What it's about is ageism in the industry. If you're over 40, there's a decline in the outlook on you doing certain roles, right? So, but what we dealt with, we improvised the whole movie, everything. And Tim Thomerson really stars in it, and Adrienne Barbeau's in it, and a lot of actors from Hollywood. But what the struggle is how do you have restraints, and you have a narrative that's going on like this, and then improvise the whole thing. And the truth of it is, everybody is finding that they're channeling a lot of ideas that they don't live with on a daily basis. They do, but it's unconscious. We all live in a lot of denial. We know we're going to die, but you don't want to live with that in the forefront. Otherwise, you're a vampire. But the point is, though, that it became so exciting and interesting and fun to do and funny that it all was channeling. We ended up, every character found its own place, their own place in the story, their own gift to give to this thing. So I don't know where it's headed, whether it'll be a film on the screen or will it be a series on Showtime or home HBO, or we don't know. But nobody cares. What we're really into is let's do this thing and do it as well as we can and see what happens. How do you do it? I mean, really what your question is not easy, because one of the things, how do you do it, depends on the chemistry of the people involved.
Yeah.
And so how do you breed that? How do you put away the diva forever and just do this good job, I've never been a diva, but I'm just saying the diva element.
Right.
I'm very low maintenance. I mean, I really love what we do, so I'm really low maintenance about it. Except that I will spend from my own pocket to make it right, to make it work.
Well, and that's apparent in a lot of the anecdotes you share in the book. And you were talking about Bring Me the Head of Lance Henriksen, which is the all-time greatest title in the history of film. That's a great title. But you also, I mean, there have been a couple of films that you've done where you have requested that you improvise your role.
That's right, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, and so freedom must play an important factor in getting into these characters' skins for you.
Well, it does. It does on every level, because really, we all flourish with freedom. I mean, freedom to love the way we want to, with a wife or a girlfriend, or all the freedoms that we search for. That's happiness. I mean, it's not the objects, these dead objects that we buy. That's freedom. It's the living things, like a dog or a horse or a person or an environment with a bunch of people, or going to a faraway place where you're witnessing something you've never seen before, an interaction between people. Mm-hmm. So the couple of movies that I've done that in, I realized I was on a precipice, and the precipice was this, that if I did it the way it was written, it would end up not being a force of any kind. It would not offer an environment where everything would flourish and come alive. And there was only a couple of times that it happened, but it was really based on the character. I knew that I just want to do a cliched characterization of something. I really wanted to see where the hell that led. To do this guy, what does it mean? Why am I doing it? And that's the personal part. But then I said I remember, it's in the book, I said to Jim Jarmusch, Jim, I don't want to say a line you wrote. And he said, well, what would you do then if you didn't? And I said, well, we'll find it on the moment. And I was so gratified that he embraced the idea with me, trusted me,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that all kinds of wonderful things happened during that movie. And I don't know that I have any right to do that. I mean, a lot of people protect their material because they've got so much money invested in, like a studio. It would be hard to imagine me going into, avatar and saying, "Look, I just want to improvise my role." You know, I mean, you couldn't do that, not in that circumstance. And I would know the difference. Right. I have a good sense of circumstance, so I know the difference. But then the couple of times that I did it, it was very successful to me. Like Stone Cold was another one.
Right. Yeah, Stone Cold. Yeah.
Yeah, with that character, I knew I had to search for him because I didn't want to do a cliche, and I didn't know who the hell he was. I found it on film, which was great.
Well, speaking of freedom and kind of finding it in film, a lot of actors, when you talk to them, they feel their ultimate freedom on stage. So the film medium as it is, tell me about the process you went through to feel comfortable with the camera and your relationship to the camera and getting to that point.
I mean, I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have been comfortable in film if I hadn't done stage. Because really stage, you know, if you're in an theater, you're still blocking is the great supporter of all time. I mean, when you find where the guy moves and how he moves in that environment, which is all imaginary, by the way. It's not. It's all supported by blocking and language and lighting. You know, I mean, it's a very unique place to act. But when you get into film, now you're suddenly in real environments, and you have marks to hit for focus and all that stuff. Well, all the blocking I did for theater served me well in film because I don't putting marks on the ground and telling me where I have to land like a Pavlovian dog and you get a cookie if you do it right, and you know doesn't offend me or bop me or even isn't noticeable. My big joke is put a stack of per diem there and I'll hit that mark much better. Believe me. I'm kidding, but anyway, that's a joke, you know. But the thing is, all of these things serve each other. But the one thing that film has is intimacy. That is, you know, I mean, real intimacy. And I think I did like that because I would rather be whispering in a girl's ear than screaming at her from down the block.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, and you tell a story that relates that, where you get your first kind of taste of how perceptive that film camera is in Dog Day Afternoon.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, yeah. And how perceptive a director can be. Yeah.
Lumet. Oh, man.
Yeah, what a great guy. Really, what a great guy. Yeah, I mean, those are miracles, but believe me, my heart was open to accept it, you know, just accept it for what it is. And it took a long time. It didn't happen overnight. Really, It did not happen overnight. You know, I've done a lot of movies and been in a lot of circumstances, you know, so. And I still love it, man. If I get bored, then I'll go just start making pottery all the time.
Right. You started a relationship with Mr. Cameron at the very beginning with Piranha 2.
Yeah. I was down in Jamaica with him. And again, you know, there was a certain reality, and that was the budget of the film. I mean, there was no budget. It was very low budget. I mean, and we, you know, but he's a guy that no matter what the budget is, every dollar is going to be up on that screen, every cent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, even to the point of saying, yeah, you know, I bought a waiter's, you know, outfit, his chinos with the stripe down the side and all of that because I was playing a harbor cop and I gave him $75 for it. Right off his body, I will change. You can go give me that, what you're wearing. That's what I wore through the whole movie. I mean, it was, and Jim was in his room making rubber fish because they didn't give him enough money for it, but he was determined to have enough. Mm-hmm. And all that stuff, man, I mean, that's magic. That's like, I'm not going to quit. There's no quit in it. There's no quit in doing this. And I love that part, man. That's like gypsies, you know. We got to eat tonight. Now, what are we going to do? How are we going to drum up the money to eat? So, you know, you make an instrument out of a pot and you get out there and you try to get the money.
Well, that's what came across in your book because your strength and dedication to each of your roles. I mean, the kind of immersive quality that you don't go in halfway.
Really, when you get down to it, that's the only skill I've got. I'm a primitive. I mean, I have done some very sophisticated characters, but like when I did Millennium, Frank Black was certainly much more educated and much more mainstream than I am. And so I had to live up to that. And what course do you use if you're me to try to find that? And you had to dig. I had to dig deep. And I was grateful for the opportunity. I really was. I mean, a part of me loved playing Frank Black.
Yeah.
What a dignified human being. Even moments. I mean, a more superficial moment. I remember playing. I was one of the astronauts in the Mercury astronauts in Right Stuff. And I remember we shot a scene where we were arriving in Texas. Sally Ride is dancing the feather dance up on the stage, and we're riding in, and there's a giant Texas barbecue in Houston. We're all arriving. The Mercury 7 astronauts, and we're all coming in, sitting on the back of Lincolns. They were, and I got such a feeling of patriotism out of it. It was like when I played Lincoln. I felt very patriotic about these men and what they did and when they did it.
Yeah.
Even when I played Lincoln, the thing that moved me the most was that Bloomingdale had done embroidery inside his coat, and it was a beautiful giant eagle, and because Bloomingdale loved Lincoln, and so things like that, those details, just fill your heart. And how can they know if you're really aware of what it meant?
And that was such a personal kind of act for him, because it's not on display for everyone to see. I mean, it reflected their feelings for him.
That's right. It was inside his jacket. It wasn't like a motorcycle guy on the back of his jacket. It was so personal.
Yeah.
This is what I love about it. Imagine where I would be had I not gone this course. I mean, I certainly wouldn't have been a writer. There's not going to be a second biography. This is it. That was it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for it, and I'm grateful it's resonating with a lot of people. So the miracle that I'm here today, sitting in my house, talking to you on the phone about something that resonated with you, and that's an amazing phenomenon right there.
It's a fantastic book, and I think that's just that's the nature of any art form, whether it's books, films, music. It's conveying an idea. It's like what you were talking about before. We're all kind of one, and I think that's what draws us to any kind of art is to sense ultimately that we're not alone.
We're not alone. We're all a part of something that we're all a part of. The other thing about writing a book like this, and I never dreamt that we would be successful, but there are a lot of people in a lot of walks of life that really struggle with their inner thoughts and how well they're doing on their road, their life road, whatever you want to call it. And movies certainly give us a chance to, live without fear for those moments that we're in a theater talking about issues that normally would be frightening, maybe, or maybe non-supportive, or maybe all of those issues. I'm not talking like a psychiatrist, but what I do mean is that I just really want to give the nod to anybody that is on the road, that is less traveled, so to speak. To tell the truth, that helps anybody. I mean, if people told me the truth every day of my life, I would be one happy guy, man. But it's the implicit kind of, talking around it, or people just don't know how to come forward, come straight with things. And I'm finding now that that's like one of the best gifts we have as human beings. I mean, we can tell the truth. That's pretty cool.
You never said anything about an android being on board. Why not?
It never occurred to me. It's common practice. We always have a synthetic on board.
I prefer the term artificial person myself. Is there a problem?
I'm sorry. I don't know why I didn't even... Ripley's last trip out, the artificial person malfunctioned.
Malfunctioned?
There were problems and a few deaths were involved.
I'm shocked. Was it an older model?
Yeah, the Hyperdyne system's 128.2.
Well, that explains it. And the A2s always were a bit twitchy.
First of all, about Aliens and your conception of the Bishop character. How did you go about building that character?
That's a very good question, because one of the things was that you had Rutger Hauer and you had the other guy that was,
Ian Holm.
Yeah, Ian Holm, this wonderful actor. And you had those guys do these incredible performances of androids, or so-called androids, artificial people, whatever. And I thought, how can I do this and not. I certainly felt, at first in competition, said, well, I got to be doing that. I got to do this really great, because look what they did. And then I realized, wait a minute, calm down, jeez, I'm scaring the shit out of myself. And really, what happened was I said, I have to find this. I have to find it myself. And I suddenly realized that he was alien even to the aliens and to the people, because he was an android. I mean, he was created, but it was suddenly a creature that's self-aware, like a computer that's self-aware to some degree. And all life was beautiful to him, because that's not what he was. And I thought, I felt that way when I was 12. I'd already left home. I was traveling the highways and riding freight trains and all these things. And I thought, I felt that alien. I mean, that's how I felt that alien. And even to the point where adults that were abusive, I would look at them and say, I'm going to outlive you, so I can give you a pass on this. I mean, you don't know what you're doing. You're hurting me for no reason, for no good reason, that's for sure. And so when I look back on it all, I thought, this is almost the perfect analogy for where Bishop is at. He's serving people. You want to be liked and loved, so you do these things, and you take care of, you rescue your parents when they're off the wall, because you love them, basically. Mm-hmm. And so that characteristic is what I dealt with and did to do Bishop. And the other part was also that in a way you could use this analogy. If during apartheid I was a black in South Africa, you don't want to make any bad moves, because you'll just be, it won't be right. It won't work. It'll be bad. And so when I kept those things in mind constantly through the thing, it became an act of discovery. I mean, weapons meant nothing to me. I realized what was of value to me. In fact, there's a funny story, man. I tried to prepare so much for it that I found a designer to start designing costumes for me to wear, and also I went and got sclerals to go in my eyes that had two pupils in each eye, and Jim ran a test of it, and he said it looks scarier than the alien, so we're not using it. Because I thought when he got alerted, he might have two pupils in each eye, so that he could know, he wouldn't miss anything. Like if something attacked, he would just go bling and have two pupils in each eye. But it was too creepy. I went and bought those. That was my own idea. So anyway.
Well, you try so much, try out so many ideas to make the character truthful for yourself. And I'm wondering, is there a point in filming where you think to yourself, I've got it, or is it still a constant kind of search to the end?
Well, it is a search till the end, but it takes a different form. It's not the externals or the internals. It suddenly becomes, what are the challenges? I remember, Jim, they were welding me into a pipe to crawl out to the uplink tower. And Jim handed me a gun, right as they were going to close the lid. He handed me a gun, and I looked at it, and it was a Jim offering a challenge. He said, "What do you think? What would Bishop do with this gun?" Without saying it, he just handed it to me, and I looked at it like, what the hell? And I handed it off, and then I rolled over the tunnel, and they welded me in, and I went. But it's like, what? Those are the greatest moments, is when the director gives you a challenge right on the moment. No talk, no nothing. Just gives you the challenge, and then you react. You respond to what you're doing. Your character. What does he need a gun for? He doesn't want to kill anything.
Right.
You know. And later years, Jim said to me, I always thought of bringing Bishop back and having somebody toyed with his brain. And he senses it. He knows it happened but doesn't know what it is. But he has this sense of dread all the time. And he has to wrestle with that. So it's a great idea. Beautiful.
It is a great idea. Wow. Bishop is a character that has followed you these past decades. I mean, you've gone back and you've portrayed kind of different aspects of him in other Alien
and of
films.
my life, sure.
Yeah. So I would think that this character has special meaning for you personally.
It does, because really those things that I'm talking about how I approach this, they were a secret. And I was just doing it. I had to audition with Jim and Gail. And because there was a rule in England, that if you have to see every actor that could possibly play that role of Bishop. And Jim actually told me, he said, if I'd seen somebody better, I would have hired them. And he's not being mean or anything like that. I mean, he's just telling the truth. And I was using what I was using, and it seemed, I even dyed my hair a particular color. I dyed it a plum color. And the reason was I knew that under lights that it would look like copper. The highlights would be copper. And so, just so that I also shaved all the hair off my body. So my arms had no hair on. I mean, so there was like a baby aspect to it. That baby skin, good skin. And all those details, I mean, the things that worked, they stayed, and the things that didn't, they were gone. But Bishop has maintained, and I think the reason is, and I've always been affectionate toward that role, was because I had decided before I did that role, I think I enjoyed myself very much in Terminator, but because it was Paul Winfield and I were very funny together, we really enjoyed each other, so that was a top relationship that was very, very kind of alive. But Bishop, if I had done all that work and didn't see it when I saw the movie, I was literally going to quit acting. So forget it. I'm done. I don't want to just service movies like I have to use this phrase, and you can cut it out if you want, but stand around with a pole at my ass just trying to serve the movie and not bring any of myself to it. You know what I mean? I was ready to quit. And it was it ended up being a lyric character and a misunderstood character and all that stuff. And I loved it. I really loved it when I saw it. I was very proud of it.
Oh, it's one of the great movies of the past 25 years, without a doubt.
And it holds up. I mean, I saw it. I'm going to be seeing it on Saturday at the Egyptian. They're doing a kind of, I think Jeanette and a lot of people are going to be there for that. Rolston, Gail Hurd's going to be there. Yeah, it holds up. People really enjoy it. I actually was, where was I? I think I was in Austin, Texas, and they showed it. And it was one of those nights, where everybody was saying all the lines in the movie really loud. So the competition was everybody was saying everybody's lines. It was hilarious, man. I was standing in the back like, what the hell is this Rocky Horror show? Really, it was fun, man. Fans are, people, the tribe. I don't call them fans anymore. I call them the tribe.
Yeah. You said something interesting, though. Years ago, I was listening to an interview with Jack Nicholson, and he said that in a lot of scenes he tries to have a secret that isn't explicit. The audience doesn't know anything about it. His fellow actors don't know anything about it, but it brings a certain special spontaneity and surprising quality to the scene for him.
That is exactly correct. I didn't know he said that, but that's really good, man. I think that's always been an issue with me because I don't want to talk about anything negative, but there is a potential if you don't keep it a secret that you'll just piss it away. It'd be like talking too much about a role rather A friend of mine has two great quotes that I love. One is, the only way for a turtle to move forward is he's got to stick his neck out. I love that one. And the other one is really good, and that is that if you're having breakfast in the morning, and the difference between being committed and being involved, if you were the chicken, you were involved. If you were the pig, you were committed. That's cool stuff.
That's great. Okay, a couple of quick listener questions, and then I'll let you off the hook. You've been so nice to give me so much time.
Oh, you're welcome, my friend. Thank you. I mean, you're supporting my book like crazy, and I appreciate it. Really do.
Oh, we're gonna sell it like hotcakes off our show page.
It's on Amazon. It's on. By the end of next week, it'll be on Kindle, Nook, and all the rest of it. But it's on Amazon and but not Brooks Brothers.
It's even a Brooks Brothers.
Well, no, Barnes and Noble. Sorry.
Heather wants to know. First of all, Heather wanted me to ask you a question that I refused to ask you. Her first question was, "Why is he so damn hot?" But I said I can't ask that question. She actually wants to know how you.
Because she doesn't know me. Those
so she came back.
The hottest, the ones you don't know, you just met. Hey, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
She came back with a legitimate question here, where she wants to know about your near dark experience and that character that you portrayed.
Oh boy, that's really interesting. You know, that was a matriarch. Catherine Bigelow, when she directs, she is one of you. I mean, you are a family, and that was a family, by the way. And we all had come from Aliens to do that movie, and we already knew each other and trusted each other. So to get into these issues that these characters had was so wonderful to do. I mean, but she would throw up a challenge like, look, there's a sunlit room behind this door, and I'm going to give you whatever you need to go in there and survive it. And so she gave us a roll of tinfoil and a blanket and spray cans, and we went in and did an Elvis. You know, Elvis used to put tinfoil in the windows so you can keep the light out. But if we get hit by the light, it's a bad burn. I mean, or could he kill us burst into flames? So there was these challenges that were set up, and and the whole environment working with her was just. It was about as romantic as you can get. I mean, and to play a character like those that live forever and have the sort of sympathy for the dying breed that the humans were, and we were also nocturnal nomads that were thinning out the herd. Horrible people or people that couldn't run fast enough. But it was, I know, that sounds so sick. But there was an issue. I remember going to Chartoff and Winkler and saying, Bill and I want to do a prequel to this movie. And he said, well, why? You answer the question, why would anybody care about these people? And I'll give you the rights. And I said, well, because they care about each other. That's what makes it work. But we couldn't do it. I mean, there was just no way to do it. That's really Catherine's baby. She wrote it with Eric Red, and I surrendered immediately. I realized, that's where that needed to go. If it was ever going to be done, it would be her doing it. Bill and I were just so enthusiastic. I mean, we saw burning horses running out of barns back in the 1800s. We had a whole scenario worked out already.
You talk about these great filmmakers that you've worked with, Cameron and Bigelow and Lumet and Walter Hill.
Sure, I love Walter. Yeah.
Do you always, because you've done so many Jarmusch, exactly, but you've done so many films, and I know that there are some films where the directors you work with are phenomenal and very helpful, and there are bound to be some that they're not. But
that's right. I mean, I call those alimony films, and there's also a film that I called jet lag films, where you get off the plane and go right to work in Eastern Europe, and you don't even know your name. I mean, let alone start talking and filming.
But do you always feel like you give your best work under those kinds of directors like Bigelow and Cameron the really involved directors? Yeah.
Of course, because they have one thing in common, man. They have really they're supporting their vision. I mean, they really support it. A lot of these other films are survival tests. You know, did I do enough good work to where this little movie that this guy's trying to do will it emerge? I mean, I can tell you we could have another hour on this subject, but of course those guys, and they have the money to fruition it, you know, and they want you, and you know, so it's a really there's many levels to this industry.
Melanie and Destiny have kind of the same questions. You got a lot of questions from female listeners here. First of all, you found yourself kind of doing a lot of work in the horror genre. So first of all, is that a genre that you enjoy, and do you wish that you could do more comedies? So that's kind of a two-part question from.
Well, I've done my first comic now, you know, and I've had comic moments like one of the Millennium things. They had me dressed up like Kirk Douglas in a blue trench coat, you know, punching people in the nuts. I mean, it was very funny. It was. I enjoyed it very much. But the point was that horror films and science fiction, I've been blessed by having done, you know, quite a few westerns, and I love writing, and I'm good at all of that stuff. But they were always morality plays, and they were always about something that was about people. And horror films, in a way, are a different deal. They're more about working out all the fears that are plaguing us, you know, about politics and about end of the world scenarios or religion or all the things that privately we dread. You know, we can't fix, we can't solve. You can't solve a ghost. You can't solve an alien coming in, you know, or turning to stone. You can't solve those things. So we do it on film to let people like lugubriate. I hate to use big words, but on the issue, whatever it is, right? and that's a different issue. That's a different deal, and that's what that is like. Whereas science fiction now is taking the place of a lot of you know, what westerns used to do. You know, which is great morality plays and dealing with the state of the world in a different way. You know, like trying to game the powers that be right now into seeing where we're headed. Why don't they get the message? I mean, you know, anyway.
Well, that's true. And horror films are designed, we talk about this a lot on the show, are kind of uniquely designed to deal with those kind of societal, kind of sociological problems in a way that's...
Right, they're certainly not shaming anybody into anything. What they're doing is, you know, acting it out so that you can say, whew, that's not going to happen to me. I know that, you know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The other one, you know, science fiction, when it's at its best, is really kind of a mixture of the impossible becoming possible. But it also, like, well, look at what Avatar was. I mean, that's like an incredible political statement, but it's also this joy of that there is something maybe better than just being a human being banging their head against the wall, you know. Yeah.
And before I let you go, one quick last question. You've done so many great films, delivered so many great performances. In your own estimation, when you look back,
you're not going to ask me that one, are you? You're not going to ask me that.
I'm not going to ask you necessarily about films, but are there moments you've created as an actor that you look back on and say, yes, that's the tops. That's something that I'm very proud of.
Yeah, at the end of Powder, I remember Powder goes back into the universe. I mean, his brain is so connected to the universe that he ends up literally vanishing in front of our eyes, and there was a big concussion. Poof, it went out in all directions, and it hit us. And Victor Salva, who directed that and wrote it and directed it, he thought it was going to have to be a very special moment when we felt the essence of this character that now has been, you know, absorbed back into the universe. And he didn't tell us how to do it. And I remember spontaneously when we did that moment, if you cross your arms in front of you and put your hands on your face because your arms are crossed, you're really feeling what your father's face looked like or felt like. Because your arms are crossed, it gives a different interpretation of what you're feeling. And for some reason that came to me, and I did it, and it brought out this emotional reaction that I didn't even expect. And that was one of my favorite movies on film. Because to me, it doesn't matter the struggle, the sweat that goes into doing a character. What really matters is what real and what spontaneously happens while you're filming.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? It's like a moment, just a moment that is so somehow alive and human and resonates. And that's to me what I'm searching for all the time.
Thank you so much for not only your book, but all the work that you've done throughout your life to inform what is in that book, and making movies that mean so much to so many people, including myself. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Really, that's really nice of you to say that. We're resonating, aren't we? Okay. Thank you for this.
Let's do it again sometime. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for tuning in to the Movie Geeks United Summer of 1986 celebration of James Cameron's Aliens. Tune in for our next installment, where we'll speak with cinematographer Rick Waite and actor Brian Thompson about the Sylvester Stallone film